Hey guys, welcome to Learn Today IGCSE. This video is a tutorial on Chemistry Paper 2 from February-March 2024 examinations. Question 1. Solid X is heated for 600 seconds. The graph shows the heating curve that is obtained. What is the melting point of X? So since this is a heating curve, from 20 degrees Celsius until 170 degrees Celsius, it will be solid. And then the temperature remains constant so that the solid melts to form liquid. And this here would be the melting point whereby solid turns into liquid. So the answer is B. Next, question 2. Which statements about diffusion are correct? Statement 1 says that aqueous ions cannot diffuse in water. This is wrong. For instance, if you have sodium chloride and then you mix it with water, it can indeed become an aqueous sodium chloride solution. Statement 2 says that diffusion is caused by the random movement of particles. This is correct, and particles will spread out in all directions in diffusion. Correct, you also learned this in physics, which is called Brownian motion. Statement 4 says that diffusion can only take place in solids and liquids. This is wrong, it only happens in liquids and gases. So the answer is C. Next, question 3. Which statement about an atom of fluorine is correct? Let's look at the nuclide notation. You've got 9 protons and 19 nucleon. Using the nucleon number, take away the proton number, you can get the neutrons. So that would be 10. Statement A says that it contains a total of 28 protons, neutrons, and electrons. Since this is an atom, the proton number will equal to its electron number. If there is 9 protons, there will also be 9 electrons. And there are 10 neutrons. If we total this up, we will indeed get 28. So the answer is A. Next, question 4. 2 of these isotopes of calcium are represented as this and this. Which statement explains why these isotopes of calcium have identical chemical properties? So you will have identical chemical properties because they have the similar proton number, meaning that they are the same element. Says here that they have the same number of neutrons. This is wrong. Both isotopes have an electronic configuration of 2.8.2. Added up this together, you get 20 electrons, which is the same as 20 protons. As long as they are in the same group, they will have the same chemical properties. So the answer is B. Next, question 5 onwards is from chapter 2. Which statement describes a property of potassium iodide? Potassium iodide is an ionic compound. It can be soluble in water. This is not volatile, as volatile substances are usually alcohol. An ionic compound has a high melting point. And yes, it can conduct electricity only when it is molten, because in this state there will be free moving electrons. So the answer is D. Next, question 6. Methanol has a boiling point of negative 19 degrees Celsius. At 20 degrees Celsius, the liquid methanol is non-conductor of electricity. In a sample of methanol, each atom of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen has noble gas electronic configuration. Noble gas electronic configuration means that the outer shell has complete full 8 electrons. Each atom has achieved this electronic configuration in one of these 3 ways: gaining, losing, and sharing. Which statement describes the bonding between the carbon atom and oxygen atom in methanol? So I'm just going to draw this out for you of how it looks like. There are 2 hydrogens, 1 carbon, and 1 oxygen. Hydrogen have 1 electron on its own, and it's going to need another electron from carbon to be stable. Oxygen has 6 electrons on its own, and it's going to need 2 from carbon. So now carbon have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 only. So we're going to move the 2 electrons here into carbon to be shared with. Now each of these atoms will have complete 8 electrons. So the first statement A says that the carbon atom, this, and the oxygen atom share 4 electrons. These are 4 electrons. So the answer is A. Next, question 7. The structures of diamond and graphite are shown. Which statement about diamond and graphite is correct? Diamond and graphite contain strong covalent bonds between the carbon atoms. This is correct. Diamond and graphite have delocalized electron is wrong. They actually cannot conduct electricity due to not having free moving electrons. Diamond and graphite has layered structures. No, they don't. They have giant covalent structures. And diamond and graphite actually have a high melting point due to its many covalent bonds that require a high amount of energy to break them. Next, question 8. Which row contains a description of metallic bonding and a property that is explained by reference to the metallic bonding? Metallic bonding has a lattice of positive ions and then delocalized electrons. So option A and B is wrong. So the property explained by reference to the metallic bonding says that a metal will react with an acid to produce hydrogen. This statement is correct, however, it is not in reference to the description being said over here. The description here talks about the lattice structure, which when hammered allows the layer to slide over each other. So when they can slide over each other, they can be molded into different shapes. So the answer is D. Delocalized electron can support a statement to say that electricity can be conducted. Next, question 9 onwards is from chapter 3. What is the relative molecular mass of sulfur dioxide? Sulfur dioxide is SnO2. You can get your answer from the periodic table. The molecular mass of sulfur is 32 and oxygen is 16. So 32 plus there is 2 oxygen, so 2 times 16. And your answer would be 64, which is D. Next, question 10. Magnetite is an ore of iron which contains Fe2+, Fe3+, and O2- only. What is the formula of magnetite? So if iron 2+ reacts with oxygen, you will take the number and cross them. You will get Fe2O2, which simplifies gives us FeO. And with Fe3+ and 2-, you cross the numbers and you will get Fe2O3. These two being combined, you will get Fe2 and 1 here, so that's 3 in total, and you've got 4 oxygens in total. So the answer is D. Next, question 11 onwards is from chapter 4, Electrochemistry. Concentrated aqueous sodium chloride and dilute sulfuric acid are both electrolyzed using inert electrodes. Which row identifies the product at the cathode in each of these electrolyses? Inert electrodes mean the electrodes are unreactive. So this is what a setup of electrolysis will look like. Let's see when we use concentrated aqueous sodium chloride as our solution. The electrode that is connected close to the negative terminal is the cathode. It will be negatively charged. This means that it will attract positively charged ions. The positively charged ion in concentrated aqueous sodium chloride is sodium and hydrogen, whereas the negatively charged are hydroxide and chloride. So in cathode, you're going to choose the one which is the most bottom from your electrochemical series, which is hydrogen. So you will get hydrogen gas from hydrogen ions. Now we're going to change this to dilute sulfuric acid. So in dilute sulfuric acid, the positively charged ions are H+, and the negatively charged ions are sulfate and hydroxide. So H+ ion will be attracted at the cathode, and again you would get the hydrogen gas. So the answer is B. Next, question 12. Electrolytes can be broken down by electrolysis. Which rows are correct for each electrolyte? You've got dilute aqueous potassium chloride. So you have K+ and Cl-. Since this is aqueous, you will have H+ and OH-. Since cathode is a negatively charged electrode, it will attract the positively charged ion, which is K+ and H+. So between K+ and H+, H+ would be selectively discharged because it is the lowest in the ECS. So H+ and you will get hydrogen gas. Whereas at anode, you've got hydroxide and chloride, and you will pick hydroxide to be selectively discharged because it is the lowest in the ECS. So hydroxide will be discharged and you will get oxygen as your product. So number 1 is correct. And then for number 2, we are using concentrated hydrochloric acid. So we've got H+ and Cl-. Since this is aqueous, you will get H+ and OH-. At cathode, only H+ ion will be attracted. So we will have the same product, hydrogen gas is correct. Whereas at anode, chloride and hydroxide will be attracted. So this time we cannot pick hydroxide even though it is in the lowest of ECS. This is because we are using a concentrated solution, so chloride ion will be selectively discharged. Chloride ion will discharge to form chlorine gas and electrons. So chlorine is correct. So the answer is the first and second statement, which is A. Next, question 13. which statement about hydrogen-oxygen fuel cells is correct? Now, hydrogen-oxygen fuel cells is an electrochemical cell when we use hydrogen and oxygen to produce electricity. And the only product here is water. You will have two hydrogen reacting with one molecule of oxygen to give water. So A says that hydrogen is extracted from clean dry air is wrong. It's extracted from water. The only product is water, not carbon dioxide. This reaction is not endothermic. No toxic gases are produced is correct. Next, question 14 is from chapter 5 onwards. Which statement defines the activation energy for a reaction? You have to remember the definition for activation energy. If you don't know the definition, you can always refer to your syllabus. Under chapter 5 of chemical energetics, you will see that it has been mentioned to you that activation energy is the minimum energy that colliding particles must have to react. So the answer is A, is the minimum energy that colliding particles must have to react. Next, question 15. The equation for the complete combustion of ethene is shown. The bond energies are listed, and they're asking you to calculate the enthalpy change of the reaction when 1 mole of ethene is completely burned. So the equation given here is for 2 moles. So what we can do is we can calculate the enthalpy change and then later on divide it by 2 to get for only 1 mole. So let's see, you have got 2 CH bonds. So we will multiply this CH bond by 2, and you have got 1 triple carbon bond. So multiply this by 1. So adding these two up together, you get 1667. So the value here is 1667. But remember that you have 2 moles of this, so it will be 3334. And then you've got 5 moles of 1 oxygen bond. So the double bond of oxygen, we're going to multiply it by 5. And that would be 2490. So the total energy for the reactants is 5824. So the total for product is 8296. Now to calculate the enthalpy, we're going to take the reactant minus the product, which is negative 2472 kilojoules per mole. But remember, this is the combustion for 2 moles of ethene and we are looking for only 1 mole. So we're going to divide this by 2, giving us 1236 kilojoules per mole. So the answer is B. Next, question 16 onwards is from chapter 6. In experiment 1, small lumps of limestone are added to dilute ethanoic acid at 40 degrees Celsius. The volume of carbon dioxide released is measured at a regular time interval. A graph of the results is shown. Which changes give the result shown in experiment 2? So as we can see here at a certain time, let's say at 30 seconds, we can observe that the volume of carbon dioxide released for experiment 1 is higher compared than in experiment 2. So if experiment 1 was using small lumps, this means that in experiment 2, they might be using large lumps because the rate of reaction over here is lower. If you used powder, it would be increasing the rate of reaction. So therefore, this cannot be the answer. Since the rate of reaction was lower in experiment 2, this means that the temperature must have kept the same. So the answer is A. Next, question 17. In the Haber process, nitrogen and hydrogen are reacted to make ammonia. The forward reaction is exothermic, which conditions produce the maximum yield of ammonia. We have got 2 factors here that is being changed. The first one is pressure and the second is temperature. Now for pressure, you need to check the number of moles. You've got 4 moles in your reactants and 2 moles in your product. Increasing pressure will cause the equilibrium to shift to the side with the lesser mole. There are lesser number of moles on the right side compared to the left. This means that when you increase the temperature, the equilibrium will shift to the right side. So to get maximum yield of ammonia, which is the product, we want the equilibrium to shift to the right. So we should be increasing the pressure. Now, when increasing the temperature in a reversible reaction, it will always favor the endothermic reaction. And in this scenario, the endothermic reaction is the backward reaction because the forward reaction is exothermic reaction. So if we increase the temperature, it's gonna favor the backward reaction, causing more reactants. We want the equilibrium to shift to the right because ammonia is our product. That means that we have to decrease the temperature. So the answer is B. Next, question 18. The Ostwald process is used to make nitric acid. The conditions used in this process are a catalyst containing transition element, a pressure of 10, and a temperature of 100 degrees Celsius. The question wants you to find out which of these conditions are also used in the contact process. So you must know the condition being used in the Haber process and also in the contact process according to your syllabus. So in contact process, temperature has to be 450 degrees Celsius at 2 atm and the catalyst used is vanadium oxide. So the only similarity here is statement 1, so the answer is B. Next, question 19 onwards is from chapter 19. Hydrogen iodide is dissolved in water. When dissolved in water, you form hydrogen ion and iodide. Remember that H plus is a proton donor which gives you acidic property. So they're asking which row describes the final color when the solution is tested with damp red litmus paper and with acidified aqueous potassium manganate. So since there is hydrogen ion which gives acidic properties, the red litmus paper will remain red as this is the result for acid. And then you've got acidified aqueous potassium manganate which is used to test the presence of a reducing agent. The potassium manganate here is an oxidizing agent. Now hydrogen iodide here is a reducing agent. And due to the formation of iodine, the colorless solution will turn red-brown. So the answer here is C. Next, question 20. Which statements about aqueous ethanoic acid are correct? Statement 1 says that it can be produced by oxidizing ethanol with potassium iodide. Potassium iodide is a reducing agent. Therefore, the potassium iodide is the one which will be oxidized as it loses electrons. So 1 is wrong. Statement 2 says that it reacts with magnesium to produce hydrogen gas. We have learned that acid, when reacts with metal, you will get hydrogen gas as a byproduct. So statement 2 is correct. Statement 3 says that it has an approximately pH value of 3. This is also correct because an acid has the range of pH between 1 to 6. And statement 4 says that it produces ester called methanoates. This is wrong since it is ethanoic acid. It will produce ester named ethanoates. So answer is C. Next, question 21. Which elements form an acidic oxide? Now to form an acidic oxide, the element has to be a non-metal. So the only non-metal here is sulfur. The answer is D. Next, question 22. Which statement describes the properties of hydrochloric acid? Carbon dioxide is produced when limestone reacts with hydrochloric acid. Limestone is calcium carbonate reacting with hydrochloric acid. You will get calcium chloride, carbon dioxide, and water. So carbon dioxide is produced is indeed correct. The answer is A. B says that hydrogen is produced when sodium hydroxide reacts with HCl. This is wrong because it will be producing water. Methyl orange turns yellow in strong hydrochloric acid is also wrong because methyl orange turns yellow in an alkaline solution. When it is an acid, it remains red. And D says that red litmus paper turns blue when dipped into hydrochloric acid is also wrong because red litmus paper will remain red in an acidic solution. Next, question 23. Elements P and Q have the same number of electron shells. An atom of Q has more electrons in its outer shell than an atom of P. If they have the same number of electron shells, it means that they are placed in the same period of the periodic table. They say that Q has more electrons. That means Q must be more electropositive compared to P. Statement 1. P and Q are in the same group of the periodic table is wrong. They are in the same period is correct. If they are in the same group, then they will have the same valence electron but different number of shells. Next, P has a greater tendency to form positive ion. This is correct as it is placed more towards the right. The oxide of Q is more basic than the oxide of P. Basic oxide is made from metal, so this is wrong because P will be more basic than the oxide of Q. So the answer is C. Next, question 24. Which substance reacts with dilute sulfuric acid to form a salt that can be removed from the resulting mixture by filtration? That means the salt that we are looking for is an insoluble salt. To make an insoluble salt, you are going to react two soluble salts together, and you will get one insoluble salt and the other soluble salt. Okay, so let's identify which is the other soluble salt that can react with sulfuric acid to get an insoluble salt. To answer this, you're going to have to know your solubility rules. So we've got aqueous barium chloride as our first option. Let's see if barium chloride is a soluble salt. It says that most chlorides are soluble except lead and silver. This is a barium chloride, so yes, it is a soluble salt which can be reacted with sulfuric acid, so this will form barium sulfate and hydrochloric acid. Now barium sulfate has sulfates in it, and it tells us that most of the sulfates are soluble except the sulfates which contain barium. So there you go, barium sulfate is indeed an insoluble salt that can be removed from resulting mixture by filtration. So the other substance that reacts with H2SO4 would be barium chloride. The answer is A. Next, question 25 onwards is from chapter 8. Astatine is below iodine in group 7 in the periodic table. So these are the elements from group 7. Remember that in group 7, as it goes down the group, it becomes less reactive. This means that if astatine is here, fluorine, chlorine, bromine and iodine, all of these elements can displace astatine. Which row describes the properties of astatine? So as it goes down the group, it becomes solid. And as for the reactivity, it cannot displace chlorine, bromine or iodine as it is lower than these three elements. So the answer is D. Next, for question 26, which property of copper explains why it is classified as a transition element? These are the 4 special characteristics of a transition element that you must remember. One of them says that it has variable oxidation number, so copper can either be 2+ or 1+. This is the reason why it is classified as a transition element. Next, question 27 onwards is from chapter 9. Brass is an alloy that is formed from copper and zinc. Which statements are correct? In your syllabus, you need to know 2 examples of alloy. The first one is brass and the second is stainless steel. So, which statements are correct? Statement 1 mentions that brass, copper and zinc all conduct electricity. This is correct. Statement 2 says that brass is a compound of copper and zinc. It's not a compound because compound means 2 elements joined together chemically, but they are joined physically, which makes them a mixture. Next, you've got brass is harder than zinc. Brass is an alloy and zinc is a regular metal. So yes, alloys are stronger than metal. So the answer here is going to be C. Next, question 28. The equation for the reaction metal M with aqueous zinc sulfate is shown. Which statement explains why metal M reacts with aqueous zinc sulfate? So this must be because metal M is more reactive compared to zinc. That's why it can displace zinc and form M sulfate instead. Zinc is less reactive than M is correct because M is able to accept electrons from zinc ions. Let's see what happens to the element M. So M becomes M2+. So it doesn't accept electron, it actually loses electrons. So A is wrong. Zinc is a more powerful reducing agent than M. A reducing agent will go through oxidation. So let's see if zinc goes through oxidation. Oxidation is loss of electron and reduction is gain of electron. As you can see here, it is gaining electrons, so this is going through reduction. That means this must actually be an oxidizing agent. C says that zinc is more reactive than M. That's wrong because zinc is being displaced by M. And the last one says that zinc ions can remove electrons from M. So this is the correct answer, D. Next, question 29. In the blast furnace, the impurity silicon oxide is removed by the formation of slag. Which equation represents the formation of the substance which reacts with silicon oxide to form slag? This question is regarding the extraction of iron in the blast furnace. So the substance that reacts with silicon oxide is calcium chloride. We will get calcium oxide when calcium carbonate, which is the limestone, undergoes thermal decomposition. So when calcium carbonate undergoes thermal decomposition, it produces calcium oxide. Calcium oxide then will react with silicon oxide to form slag. Next, question 30. Aluminium is extracted from bauxite by electrolysis. Which statement is correct? This is a setup for the extraction of aluminium. So we will be extracting aluminium from aluminium oxide, which is known as bauxite. The product is the pure aluminium and oxygen gas. Now aluminium will be formed at the cathode and oxygen at the anode. Now at the anode, when oxygen is formed, it will react with the carbon anode to form carbon dioxide. So at anode, when oxygen is formed, it reacts with carbon to get carbon dioxide. So the answer is C. And you also see the word cryolite during the bauxite electrolysis. Remember that cryolite is being added to reduce the melting point of aluminium oxide. Next, question 31. Iron rusts, but aluminium does not easily corrode. Which statement explains why aluminium does not easily corrode? So when a material does not easily corrode, it's because it has a protection layer, and for aluminium, it will be the layer of oxide. So the answer is D. Next, question 32 onwards is from chapter 10. Which chemicals can be used as a fertilizer to provide the 3 elements needed for improved plant growth? The 3 elements needed are nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. So nitrogen, phosphorus, and calcium are all present. The answer is B. Next, question 33. What is the color change when water is added to anhydrous cobalt chloride? Please remember the result of these 2 compounds, anhydrous copper sulfate and anhydrous cobalt chloride. When water is being added, the anhydrous cobalt chloride, which was previously blue, will turn to become pink. So the answer is B. Next, question 34. How do carbon dioxide and methane cause global warming? If you look into your syllabus outline under air quality and climate, it has been clearly mentioned to you how the greenhouse gases such as carbon dioxide and methane can cause global warming. This is due to the absorption, reflection, and emission of thermal energy, therefore reducing the thermal energy loss into space. So the answer is A. Next, question 35. 4 statements about photosynthesis are listed. Chlorophyll is required for photosynthesis. This is correct. Chlorophyll is a green pigment that you will find inside the chloroplast. The equation for photosynthesis is glucose plus oxygen gets carbon dioxide and water. It's actually the other way around. This over here is the equation for aerobic respiration. So any option with 2 we can cancel out. Photosynthesis requires energy from light. This is correct. Photosynthesis releases carbon dioxide, which is wrong. It releases oxygen. So the answer is 1 and 3. Next, question 36 onwards is from chapter 11. Which molecules are structural isomers? Isomers are compounds with the same molecular formula but different structural formula. Let's see. The first one have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 carbon. Since it's all single bond, this must be a 5 carbon alkene, which is a pentane. Next, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 carbon but double bond. This is an alkene, so it's going to be pentene. Next, see, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 carbon, all single bonds are alkane, so this is a pentane. And lastly, you've got 6 carbons with double bond, so it's going to be a hexene. So compound 1 and compound 3 both have 5 carbon and 12 hydrogen. So the same molecular formula, they just look different. So the answer is 1 and 3. Next, question 37. Which statements about the reaction of ethene with steam are correct? The homologous series of ethene is an alkene. When react with water, it will form an alcohol. The alcohol would be ethanol since we are using ethene. Statement 1 says that the product has a higher molecular mass than ethane. So ethane is C2H6, whereas the product is an ethanol, that means it's C2H5 and OH. It has an extra oxygen which is heavier, so yes, this statement is correct. The product reacts with aqueous bromine. This is the product. No, it does not react with aqueous bromine. Alkenes will react with aqueous bromine. So since option 2 is wrong, we can cancel out A and C. Next, the number of electrons shared between carbon atoms decreases. So initially, ethene had double bond, meaning that there are 4 electrons shared. When it becomes the product, which is an alcohol, everything is single bond, meaning only 2 electrons are being shared. So yes, the number of electrons being shared has now decreased from 4 to become 2. The reaction produces an alcohol and hydrogen is wrong. It only produces alcohol, no hydrogen. So the answer is B. Next, question 38. Methane and chlorine react to form chloromethane. Now, an alcohol and halogen, alkane cannot go through addition because it is saturated. So instead, it will go through a substitution process to form chloromethane. So this type of reaction is substitution. For substitution to happen, there must be presence of ultraviolet light. This is known as a photochemical reaction. So the answer is A. Next, question 39. Parts of the structure of two different polymers X and Y are shown. So you've got a COOH group that combines with NH. Next, you've got two different monomers that has combined with each other. Okay, so the monomers in X and Y, they are different. These are the linkages. You've got N to H, C to O. Just in a different position, but N to H, C to O. So actually the linkages are the same. The answer is B. Next, the last question is from chapter 12. Substance Q is tested using paper chromatography. The resulting chromatogram is shown. Which statement is correct? So from the baseline, as you can see, you will achieve 2 RF values. This means that this substance Q has at least 2 different substances. The answer is C. Alright, that's all for this video. For the next video, I'll be solving the biology paper 2. If you find this video helpful, please subscribe to my channel. Thank you for watching. Bye bye. Take care.